I'm here with Ryan Holiday, who's the author of many books, including The Obstacle is the Way, Ego is the Enemy, and his latest, Stillness is the Key. So happy to be here with you, Ryan.
Yeah, it's good to do it in person.
It's been 7 years of knowing you.
Mm-hmm.
This is our 4th interview. You've written how many books?
I believe 9, but I honestly have lost count.
So after all of this time, what has most changed for you, and what's remained the same in terms of your philosophy and how you operate in your life?
That's a good question. I don't know how much has changed. I feel like I'm the same person, but I feel like what you're doing is you're solving the obvious problems in your life, and then what you're doing is you're going up that hierarchy of needs, and so the problems get seemingly less urgent, but ultimately much more important and consequential. And so part of what I'm doing in this book is like, okay, when you've sort of gotten through the obstacles, when you've gotten your life or your career or your business on track, what's the problem next? Like, what are you solving next? And I think what this book is solving this thing that so many of us are feeling right now and have always felt, which is like, we're overwhelmed, we're too busy, we're not experiencing the stillness that we need to make good decisions, to be happy, to bring our best work out from wherever it comes from.
Yeah, and something what I noticed too, of course, of studying a similar topic, is people are overworked, they're burned out, not having your phone as a new vacation, people responding to business, email and messages outside of work, on weekends, on vacation, just everywhere. They can't get enough. So people feel like they need to constantly be connected.
Yeah.
How can people start to disconnect and be more present?
So one of the things I've started doing, just as far as devices go, is I don't touch my phone for the first 30 minutes to 1 hour of the day. So I wake up, I don't sleep with the phone in the same room, and then I don't touch it. Like, I use it as an alarm clock. Sometimes I don't have an alarm clock because I have a 3-year-old. But when I don't touch the phone in the morning, and I want to get started, I want to get into the work before I get sucked into the stuff. So for me, I try to build my life around like really winning the morning, like really having front loading as much of the big successes earlier in the day. So then when things interrupt or things get stressful or I get distracted or I get tired or whatever, all the things that can happen in the course of the day, it's not pushing anything off for me because I already did the important stuff. So if I have a distraction-free day, that's amazing because I'm super productive. I got extra done, but like by 10 or 11, I've like done enough. I've done like a normal human day's work. That's sort of how I think about it.
How do you define stillness? What is the feeling like when you've achieved stillness?
Yeah.
And why should people try to do that?
So stillness is one of these things that I think manifests itself in different ways. There's like, there's the stillness of a baseball player sort of staring down a pitcher, the waiting for the right pitch. There's the stillness of, a parent with a child asleep on you. There's this stillness of sitting in front of a journal. There's the stillness of when you get in one of those flow states with whatever the work you're doing is, the stillness of like being out in nature. So there's lots of different forms, but I think at the core of it, it's defined by presence. It's defined by a lack of kind of swirling negative emotions. It's a sense of possibilities. It's a clarity of intention. You're not, even if you are doing something really important, whether it's writing or making music or onto some big idea, you're intensely engaged, but you're also not thinking that much. So to me, stillness is this place we go to personally that's quite important, but also professionally. It's like sort of the key to elite performance. And so I think we know that stillness is what unlocks whatever it is we want in life, personally or professionally. The problem is, as relatable as those moments I just talked about were, we've all had them, we all know that they're pretty rare. And so the idea is, well, why? If they're so important, why do we allow them to be so rare? And how can we build a life that sort of encourages them, or at least doesn't make them impossible?
Yeah, I'm curious. You're raising a kid right now.
Mm-hmm.
How will you raise your kid differently after studying Stoicism and other ancient wisdom and philosophies?
Well, the power of learning how to be by yourself is a big one. So like one of the things we do when my son wakes up in the morning is like, your instinct is like, oh, I gotta go get him, right? And it's like, actually, he should learn how to be by himself. Obviously, watching on the monitors is not hurting himself or something, but had the power of just being by yourself. He and I, so not only is the not using a device in the morning a thing for me, but it's also for him, so he can actually experience a parent who's fully engaged, not half checking email, half babysitting. And then one of the things we do every morning that's a big part of my routine as far as stillness goes is we take a long walk. We either go on a 2 to 3 mile walk, or if he asks for it, we'll go on a bike ride. I put him in this trailer and we sort of ride around. And the idea is, let's go out, let's do something active, but let's only do that, right? And so that just doing that activity, whether it's walking and watching the sun come up, whether it's riding the bike, we're just out in nature, we're experiencing something together, and this is all that we're doing, and we're just enjoying it. And so it's I think ultimately you teach stillness by example, and I think that's a key thing that parents have to provide for their kids. There's some, kids are naturally present and still, it's the parents who make them anxious and frenetic and overwhelmed by signing them up for cello lessons and everything else.
I think part of stillness has to do with environment, and we've talked about this. You've been frustrated with living in New York, and now you live a half hour outside of Austin on a farm.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how did that play a role in you achieving stillness or being calm or being able to focus more on writing and your family?
Yeah, I think it's really important that that if you're good at what you do, you can live anywhere you want. And just because your industry is in San Francisco or New York or it's in Houston or wherever, that doesn't mean you have to be there. You should develop or build a life that you want. And so for me, I realized I just didn't like New York. I thought it was too expensive. I thought it was too loud. There's too much to say yes to all the time. If I didn't want to go to a dinner, I felt guilty because it was only 7 blocks away. I don't feel guilty when I'm in Austin because it's a 3-hour plane ride away. If it's important, I'll get on a plane and go. If it's not, I don't feel guilty. And this time I don't get asked because they know I don't live here. And so even though professionally it was great in New York, personally it wasn't. And so the decision to decide to move somewhere a little slower, a little quieter, a little more affordable, where my neighbors were a bit more normal, and it's just been really beneficial. So I think the environment is a key part of stillness. Look, you should be able to get to this place of stillness and to find peace and quiet wherever you are, whatever you're doing. It shouldn't have to be that you move to an ashram or a Buddhist temple, but there's good environments and bad environments, and I think you want to pick the one that's right for you.
And one of the things that we both do is run.
Yeah.
So on Instagram, you have 1 billion running pictures of you running everywhere.
Mm-hmm. I ran this morning and swam.
I run because it lowers my anxiety. It's not as much for health reasons, but I benefit for the health reasons.
Yeah.
Why do you run, and how has it impacted you?
So to me, the physical health benefits are the bonus benefits. The actual benefits is having a thing that I do every day. So it's a hobby. It's having it's the act of doing something that is physically challenging, like the mental strength that goes. Your body doesn't want to run, right? But the act of forcing yourself to do it is really important. I think there's a lot of overlap between writing and running. Writing is good once you get into it, but it's hard to start, and running is kind of the same way. It forces you to be outside. It's a good place. I've never left a run, started a run while I was angry and then come back and I was still angry. I almost always come back from a run better, more focused, stiller, have some, usually the amount of times I've burst into my house and yelled at my wife, do not talk to me, because I have to write something down and I want to get it down before I leave, before it leaves my head is too many to count. I would say if people are not into running or if they've hurt their knees from running, I think swimming is extra special, and I've become a big advocate of swimming, if only because you can kind of still be reached while you're running, because you're listening to music on your phone or whatever. Underwater is the one place that there are no screens, and so there's a power to swimming that I really like.
Yeah, I'm curious, when did you originally get interested in Stoicism?
Yeah.
And who were some of the Stoics that you most gravitated towards, and what sayings or philosophies do they have that most resonated with you?
So a previous guest on your show actually introduced me to Stoicism when I was 19 years old. I was at this conference, and Dr. Drew came up to me and we were talking after the conference. I was just some kid, and I said, hey, are you reading anything interesting? What would you recommend? And he happened to be reading the Stoics at that moment. And so I went back to my hotel room and I bought it. And I just fell in love with what I feel like is a very practical, straightforward, and applicable set of philosophies. To me, the 4 virtues of Stoicism are courage, which we know is important, wisdom, we know is important, justice, that's doing the right thing, we know is important, and then on top of that, they talk about temperance or moderation. And so just having a core set of virtues that you try to live by is really important. I think the most powerful lesson that I got from Stoicism, I gave you this earlier, this Memento Mori coin. I'll show it. But on the back, I have a quote from Marcus Aurelius, and it's probably the one that struck me the most from Stoicism. He says, you could leave life right now, let that determine what you do and say and think. And so I try to go through life not taking anything for granted, not taking the future for granted, and not really leaving anything unfinished. And so it's like something I think about as I'm even working on this book. It's like, if I died, would the manuscript that I left be enough? Or have I cut corners? Have I been selling myself short? And just the idea of like living each day completely and fully and not deferring anything until later has been really powerful to me.
And that's amazing because you do so many things.
I try.
Just to name a few,
Yeah.
Writes a book a year, dad,
Yeah.
husband,
Yeah.
has an email newsletter that's read by at least 80,000 people.
Yeah.
Is that number right?
Daily Stoic goes out to 200,000 people each morning.
200,000,
Yeah.
I underestimated, right? All these blogs,
Sure.
writing for The Observer, writing for Medium, so many different things.
Sure.
So how do you structure your day so you can achieve stillness while
Yeah.
also getting things done because you're very ambitious?
Well, what I think when people hear of a busy schedule, they think, oh, this person must be overwhelmed. And it would be if that was all left up to chance. To me, routine is a way to create stillness and to create order from the chaos. So like, I wake up and I know what time I wake up, I know what I do next, I know what I do next, and most importantly, I know like all the stuff that I say no to. So I can focus on like, I have a rule with my assistant, like I really don't put more than, with the exception of like this week, because I'm here on a book tour, is like, I don't want more than like 2 or 3 things in my calendar. I want like nothing there. Because if stuff is in the calendar, then I'm not doing the thing that I'm actually trying to be prolific in, which is writing. And so it's about having order, having kind of a rhythm, and then just doing it every day. I think it's the same with running. Like I talk to people and they're like, oh, I'm training for a marathon, I'm training for this. I go like, I'm not, this is it. Like the marathon for me is like doing it every day.
Yeah, this vicious cycle, Ryan, of, I always think like, when I released my first book when I was 25,
Yeah.
like, I'm gonna write 4 or 5 more books before
Yeah.
30. Like,
Yeah.
like there's this constant drive of always thinking you need to do more.
Yeah.
And then there's, besides the internal pressure, these external pressure of other people being like, when's your next book coming
Yeah,
out? Which
of
is the
course.
most annoying thing in the world because
Yeah.
it's usually people who've never written a book.
Of course it is.
So
Right.
how do you get past that and achieve peace and be more present when you have all these pressures internally and externally?
You gotta just actually love doing it, right? So I think people are way too caught up in the outcome. So yeah, sure, I'm doing a book a year, but that's not how I'm thinking about it. That's how it looks to other people. How it looks
What
to
you
me.
say, you want the noun but not the verb.
Yes,
That's
yeah,
what you say.
yeah, and I got that from Austin Kleon, who's a great writer. He wrote this book called Show Your Work. He's like, just do the work, just show up every day, write, and it adds up. You know what I mean? Eventually they get published. So that's how I think about it, is that I'm always working on something. I'm not like working towards, and that's my same attitude with running and swimming. Like in a way it would be awesome to do an Ironman or a marathon, but I'm almost leery of doing that because it's making it about the outcome rather than the process.
And the thing that I always remember when I think of you is the book is the marketing, the content is the marketing, meaning that think of what you're creating as a thing that is going to hopefully sell itself in a way with a little bit of your support.
Yeah, and look, the most powerful thing you can have as a writer or a musician or an entrepreneur is to build an audience where people are anticipating what you're doing next. So that question is annoying. You're saying, like, but it's also what you want, because like most people have the opposite problem, which is like nobody cares and nobody's anticipating it. So one of the things, again, with having the rhythm and always be working, is you create an expectation on the other side where they're like, when's the next one coming out? And you want that. And so that I think about that too.
And you're obviously great at building relationships and maintaining them. And you do spend a lot of time in the author community supporting people. You don't have to do that, but you choose to. You think it's really important to you. So give a few relationship building tips. Like, what do you recommend for people who are trying to connect with people who are maybe more powerful and influential than them?
I think you want to realize that like you're not actually competing with anyone, especially in books. It's like Mark Manson selling a lot of books is not coming at the expense of me selling a lot of books. In fact, he's probably bringing people to reading, just as I'm trying to bring people to reading.
Endorsements in the back.
Well, of course, yeah. But no, what I mean is like I want other authors to succeed. First off, it's a way better way to live. Like, you do not want to be like, I'm so mad that so-and-so's on the bestseller list. Like, I want everyone to be selling lots of books because it means that the ecosystem is healthy. And so it doesn't hurt me to help other authors. And that was one of the things I thought really early on. It was like, if I recommend people books and those books change their lives, when I have a book, they will take my recommendation seriously. And so really, I think helping other people is a great strategy. Just genuinely being in what you're doing for the right reasons. Like, the authors I don't help, or the people whose work I don't like, it's when it's so transparently transactional. Like, they're doing a book because they want to get speaking gigs, or they're investing in companies because they think that's how they're gonna, become a billionaire. I want to work with people who are genuinely interested in this thing, and that's where the connections come from. So I think that's it. And then also just like have a diverse set of interests. If you're 100% about work, you have and you live a boring sort of monastic existence, you have nothing to connect with people about. Like, some of my best relationships have come from people I go running with, or people that I've gone hunting with, or people that I've met at conferences or events, or like out doing things. And so you've got to be out in the world, and that's what facilitates the relationship.
And what's your best piece of career advice?
Okay, so you asked me this, and I was trying to think of a counterintuitive one because I don't remember what I've said the first 3 times. What I've been thinking about a lot lately is that you should do the thing that only you can do. So Peter Thiel talks about this. He says, like, competition is for losers. Like, you don't want to go where there's competition. You want to go where there's no competition. And so many people go, I see this, they'll go, like, I'll see book proposals and they'll mention my books, or they'll mention other really successful books. And it's like, no, you should be doing, like, those books didn't have other books to point to. Like, you should be carving out new space. And like, the truth is, like, every one of us, one of the great gifts we have is that we're born with a monopoly, right? We're born with totally unique DNA, totally unique experiences, totally unique point of view. And so instead of using that to create a distinctive, unique brand, we see what other successful people are doing, and then we make ourselves like them, and then we wonder why we have trouble standing out. And so if you want to stand out, if you want to have impact, if you want to be special, you got to remember, like, the value is in scarcity. And so if you can focus on, like, writing a book or making a movie or pursuing, like, do it. Don't just be another Groupon clone, or don't just be another Bitcoin startup, or don't just be another business book that mentions the same 5 academic studies. Like, do something unique and special that you were, like, put on this planet to do.
Awesome. Thank you so much,
Of course.
Brian.
Thanks for having me.